welcome to the subawards subcommittee. I'm Amanda Humphrey from Northeastern University.
I'm Stephanie Scott from Columbia University.
And I'm Amanda Haymaker from Purdue.
So today, as always, we have an action-packed agenda. First, we're going to just check in quickly about the templates, talk a little bit about an email that I sent earlier this week regarding the data transfer and use agreement attachment update, otherwise known as attachment 7. We're going to talk a little bit about SIRBs, clinical research, subaward delay survey results, and committee structure. So templates first. We released some templates in September. How's it going? Good, bad, ugly, pretty?
Any issues? Oh, comment.
Do you want me to go?
Just go for it.
The only comment I have is when it says other agency on the first page.
Sure.
Not everybody is typing the other agency name.
I see.
To it. So
Okay.
we often are getting incoming ones that I'm like, what agency? And I have to go to the prime, hoping they've attached the prime.
Okay.
And that it's more than just the NSF RTC terms listed in attachment 2.
Okay,
So.
sure, fair. Okay, we can talk, we'll think about how to navigate that a little bit. Anyone else have any other things they want to share about using the new templates? Okay.
How about the fixed rate clinical research sample? Has anyone attempted to use that yet? You're like,
I
yeah.
used it, worked well. The last meeting we were at, you guys told me to use a hybrid, so for the academic portion, we sent a cost reimbursable, and for the clinical stuff, we sent a fixed price. Nobody yelled at us.
Awesome.
And what about the new chart that we put out there that kind of talks through some of the different options for subs? Carolyn? Okay, great. Okay, great.
Awesome.
Good.
Oh my God, so I love it. Oh, yep.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Did you have a commitment of how often the templates would be officially released? I felt like I don't know if we locked that down.
We did talk about our hope is to not have to touch them until 2021 because we were hoping to move to every other year. It depends, though, of course, on what happens with the federal government. If something big shakes up or there's changes, we may have to do something sooner than that. But our goal is, if nothing else really changes, that maybe there'd be like, if there's like little tweaks that have to be made, maybe a minor release once, but we're hoping not to have to touch them until 2021. That's our goal. Whether or not we'll get there, we'll see.
Because that's a budgetary consideration for us. We have to pay for that inside our organization. The department has to pay for the changes for IT to make those.
Oh.
Right.
So I have to project that.
Yep. I will say, aside from, and I have to double check whether we changed it to UEI, but maybe on attachment 3A and 3B, that Dunn's number field would change to a reference of UEI instead. That's the only thing I can think of that we may not have done, and I can't remember honestly if we did it or not in attachment 3A and 3B, but hopefully that would take 10 minutes and you wouldn't have to actually build that into your budget, but we'll see.
Yep.
Okay.
DTUA attachment, it's done. It's live on the website. Just look for attachment 7. So first we just wanted to say thank you, especially to Melissa Korf, who's in the room. Thank you, Melissa, because Melissa really spearheaded the effort to get the DTUA attachment through the process. All of our working group members, all the people who commented, Laura Register made the PDF form for us, and Jessica McDonough, Stephanie Stone, and June Delarusso all tested even during the holiday break. So guidance and a webinar on use will be forthcoming. Remember, this is a pilot, so be kind. Some institutions are ready and raring to incorporate attachment 7, and you will be seeing it coming to a theater near you. Other institutions are having internal dialogue about when and how this can be incorporated into their process. Some institutions, it's just not going to be incorporated into their process. So this is a pilot to see how we can kind of work together on this whole process. So just be mindful when you're sending stuff out about the fact that people are not going to 100% of the time be ready for a DTUA attachment 7, and you may have some work and some explanation to do with them. Hopefully when we get the guidance out there, that will help that process. One thing I did just want to highlight really quickly is on term 2, there is a drop down and you select the type of data, whether it's PHI, PII, limited data set, de-identified or other. And then when you click, you select from that menu what it is, and then you click out of the box, and then the terms will populate on the second page of that PDF. So you won't see all of the terms all the time. You'll only see the terms based on what you select in term 2, and then you basically kind of click out of the box, and that's how you run the template, for lack of a better way to explain it. And please be sure that you download it and don't just use it in the browser, because that's another issue where sometimes things get sticky when you're just like running it in the browser instead of downloading it and running it from there.
I'll just add one thing in terms of communications within your institutions to the folks that are either issuing subawards, but also those that are receiving them. And so since this came out this week, I know one thing that I want to do at my institution is, it's not just to make it aware to the subaward group that this is an option and we're going to have to think through how we might want to change our workflow, but it's also the individuals who review these inbound subawards. They may all of a sudden see this new template and may not know what to do, or may have not be used to reviewing these before. So you may want to consider, if you're an institution that is choosing not to do this at this time, where you're still evaluating your processes and your workflows, at the very least, you want to communicate with the individuals who are going to review these as inbound subawards to make them aware that they're going to start seeing this attachment, and they may be the ones that are responsible for reviewing DUA terms, or they may have to work internally with going to the individual who does review those DUA terms. So I just want to, have you think on the other side as well.
Great point. Anyone, any questions about this before we move? Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is, just because you put it in there doesn't mean that the person doing the self-employed, incoming employee, is necessarily the one that owns the attachment.
That's exactly it.
That's
So remember, not all of us work the same way. So some individuals do DUAs. Sometimes it's the same individuals reviewing and issuing DUAs as well as subawards. Sometimes, you have two separate agreements, but maybe it's still the same person. Other institutions, this may be completely separate functions. And so when you're issuing out and you're like, yay, I've reduced burden, and now it's all in one agreement, realize that the institution at the other end, there may be two people or other people involved to review it. That's why this is a pilot, because we got to get your feedback on, is this increasing subaward delays? Is it not? Is it reducing burden? We need to get feedback on it.
Mm-hmm.
So as a pilot, this could be a decline from the incoming institution saying we need to do this in a separate agreement. We can't accept attachment 7 in this subaward. Is that plausible?
I think that would be plausible, and I think you just have to work together with that other institution. In some cases, you may be able to talk them into trying it. In other cases, you may not. I think that's where we come back to it is a pilot. We ask people to be mindful of the fact that we hope institutions are at least having discussions at their institution about how they can make this a workable process with other FDP member institutions. But for some institutions, that because of where things are located in different processes and where roles and responsibilities lie, it may not be an easy day one. Yes, of course we can accept this. We're going to take it. It may be we're working on this, but we're not ready to accept this yet, and we've got to have some more conversation. Why do you need to put it in here? Can we have a separate DUA? There's a comment in the back, I think. Yeah. No? Okay. Anything else? Yes. Ted.
Yeah, just to go off that point, so at my institution we have signature delegation, and I'm not allowed to sign something that would constitute some sort of data regulation, stuff like that. So where in my part, I would have to get somebody to review it. And I wouldn't be able to sign it, so it would cause a little confusion at my place a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm for it. I'm not.
Right. I mean, these are exactly the points and the issues that we got to collect. So signature authority of who could sign off. Yep.
We're in the same situation at my institution, and I'm wondering if others start to use attachment 7 and send that to us. The TTO side of it is going to hopefully process up. Is there a way that when receiving it or when sending it out, if you include the attachment 7, indicate if these two need to be separated, just let us know or something like that? Because I wouldn't be able to sign the agreement and let attachment just go through its flow on its own.
I think that's a really good point. Like, I'm wondering in the communication process in issuing the subaward, and maybe there's a heads up or a template or a boilerplate that can accompany this. I don't know. Melissa, I think you're looking at us like, do you have something to say? No? On this one? You're thinking through it. You're thinking through it. Okay.
But Melissa,
End of the day, so it's a slow process.
Okay.
but these are all things that we can also incorporate into the guidance piece and into the webinar pieces that will be forthcoming. So even if we're not able to kind of get our fingers around it today, we'll be able to post some things for comment via the guidance, and then also maybe talk a little bit more about it in a future webinar. And I saw a comment back over there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess, would there be an option for a separate signature block just on the attachment 7 so that you could have two different individual signing for the subaward agreement and
So that I do have a thought on. If you are an institution or you're working with an institution that has to separate the two documents, there is still an option in attachment 2 to select that it would be handled via separate DUA. And I would recommend doing that and then using the DTUA,
Yeah.
standalone DTUA, because separating the two documents and going through a separate signature process negates the point of having them in a single agreement.
And if there's a way that you can electronically sign within your institution, so there are some things in my institution where I would get like my general counsel's sign off, but they just do it via email to me and then I physically sign the document. So that could be another discussion, is that you have the approval from the relevant party on file, but one person signs the document. That could be another solution for some institutions depending on your process. There.
So, I just have a comment that doesn't actually relate to the process for us as members, but there was a concern by our general counsel that they provided the DTUA working group with a laundry list of concerns that they had.
Sure.
For us, we cannot accept or would not feel that the terms of the attachment 7 adequately cover or protect PHI, PII for us.
Okay.
And so for us, it extends beyond just the process. It gets more into the language.
And I think that, where this is a pilot, if your institution's comfortable with the language that's in the other or de-identified and you're comfortable, with those, then when you're working with people and they send it and it's PHI, you said that our OGC is not yet ready to accept this for this. We can only accept it in these circumstances. And I think that that's good information when we send out surveys and we're checking in on this to give us that. We do know that there were some institutions that did give us a number of comments, and we did evaluate all of those comments, and where we could incorporate them, we did. And then there were other instances where we felt the comments were maybe duplicative, and so sometimes what we find is that maybe people don't know the context of the rest of the subaward agreement, and so they're thinking that we're missing a lot of information that's actually hanging in different attachments to the subaward itself. So it could also be a process of kind of walking through with them, and if you want us to have a call with your OGC at some point in the future to walk through how this hangs together with the other attachments, that's certainly something that we can explore. So if anyone is like, I really want to get this through my institution, but I need some help explaining how this all ties up for leadership or another office, we can definitely keep having those discussions. It's hard to craft a single piece of guidance that's going to address everyone's concerns and speak to all the different audiences that we all have to deal with. So I think that's where, every once in a while, a couple of individual phone calls are really helpful. Stephanie and Melissa. Oh, Melissa and then Stephanie.
Sort of just to add to that, it's something that we've experienced, I think, with the DTUA standalone pilot, is that a lot of institutions are comfortable with it, but we get to the identifiable information and they're like, whoa, no. And so, try to not throw out potential good because there's one place that doesn't work. I will also say that in terms of convincing another entity maybe to accept the attachment or accept the language. It's a far easier sell when you're the provider, right? So it's impossible if you ask your see if someone else is getting identifiable information or you're okay with this. Because the risk considerations, I think, are different when you're the providing entity than when you're the recipient. Because when you're the recipient, you comply with what you think you need to comply with versus feeling like you're obligated to obligate another entity to comply.
That's a great point. Stephanie?
So I've seen at least 2 instances of institutions issuing the new template, and because attachment 7 didn't exist, they put their own stuff in attachment 7, and it was all over the place, and that was a little scary. Is our guidance to say, if you want to attach to attachment 7, it's going to be this, and it can't be another wacky thing that you think of? Is that what we're saying?
Yes, I would say that we have very specifically now that attachment 7 is posted, I would just redirect them to this and be like, oh look, attachment 7 is alive. Just use that, please. Thank you. And anything else, I think you're well within your rights to kind of say, this is either a separate DUA and it gets handled as a totally separate thing, or we use the attachment 7 that is the pilot of the FDP, and that's what we're gonna kind of benchmark against. So.
And we're back to the same rule of it doesn't get changed.
Yes,
Wow.
yeah. So unless there's a sponsor specific thing, but I think in the guidance we're saying, like, look, if there's 1 or 2 very small things in there that are very, then if both parties can agree to it and you've made it clear to them, hey, we've added in this one thing that came in with the notice of award, fine. But if you're dealing with like multiple parties and there's like 4 parties and there's this special thing that got added in and it's very onerous and it adds in all these layers of liability and indemnification, just separate DUA. I think the main thing that is going to come out in the guidance, and Melissa, correct me if I'm misstating this in any way, is that this is for very vanilla data transfers between 2 collaborating institutions. This is not for your really complex. If you have GDPR data that you're handling, don't do it. Use the DUA. We got a lot of comments about what about GDPR? How do I incorporate the GDPR into this? We don't want to. This is very specifically limited to the instances where we can get away with more minimal language in a collaborative environment where there's a lot of other terms and conditions governing that collaboration. The faculty members are truly working together, and it's a very, very kind of routine collaboration. These some of the more complex situations that we come across in our workings, that's where use another format, we think. So
just to sort of add to that, I think we've also, and we're going to make it clear in the guidance, that if the scope of the use of the data expands beyond the scope of the subaward agreement, incorporating the terms into the subaward agreement isn't appropriate either, right? Because use of the data, by the nature of the way the agreement is constructed, is going to be limited to the period of the sub and the scope of the sub. So if this is just a part of how you're collaborating together, we need to consider something more.
absolutely. Sherry?
Is there guidance available right now, or are you guys working on that?
We're still working on that, so it'll be forthcoming. We wanted to get the attachment out so people could kind of start getting a feel for it and using it, and because there were people kind of struggling to fill the gap of attachment 7, so now that's there. But if you have suggestions for things you'd like to see in the guidance, please feel free to email us. You can use the subawards mailbox, and I saw there was a comment.
I had a suggestion about that tagging onto the guidance. We worked a lot with OGC offices having to explain kind of why this is different and why we accept, kind of language that we would normally accept for like-minded entities, etc. Something that we could kind of use for those discussions, incorporated into the guidance that kind of lays out what you guys just said. Here's the context of the big picture. Here's the purpose of this. I think in general, it's beneficial to have those documents together rather than have to go find out later or whatever that there is an agreement out here it's related to this stuff that we find out there's conflicting terms, or just not having one in the first place. So I think there's a lot of benefit in having them in that attachment having them together. So maybe thinking about in the guidance a little blurb or something, OGC kind
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, I think, move on. Speaking of guidance.
So the subcontract guidance, we released the updated subcontract sample, which does mean that you can amend it as you see fit. It's starting up. So Rick Alves, also at Northeastern, is leading the effort. He has a kickoff call next week. If you just want to email the subaward mailbox, we'll connect you if you're interested in joining the call.
Right, and so this is when the federal, the prime is a federal contract as opposed to a grant or cooperative agreement. So items that are regulated by the FAR. Okay. More guidance. Okay. So the guidance document FAQ work group, we tried to keep changes to a minimum this year as best as we could. We only added 5 new FAQs. This is a first for us. Woo! So we're up to 85. We're gonna have to talk people about where this goes in the future, and I do have more to say about this later on. So let me give you the highlights, and I apologize. Normally we like to issue the FAQs in tandem with the release of the subword templates. It just didn't happen this time. I don't think it happened last time either. We're a little slower to get that going. It's harder to write some of this, and also when things are released, we realize things after they're released. Oh, this would make a good question. So what I'm going to do, and it's done. The guidance is ready. It's done. I just have to format and clean it up and send it out to the listserv. And I want to send it as a draft and have you guys look at it for about 4 weeks or so, just to make sure that we're all okay with each other before we make it official and post it on the website. So here's what you can look forward to. 2 new FAQs related to flexibility to incorporate non-substantive formatting changes. So this came up a couple of times. Some institutions may reformat the template and it may look different, but the content is exactly the same. Are you allowed to do that? And certainly if you have electronic systems in place because you're trying to reduce administrative burden within your institution, I don't think that we should stop you from doing that. However, I would caution you as pass-through entities that you want to inform your subrecipient, whether it's through when you send it out in the cover letter or the email exchange, that the substance of this subaward is the same. This is only formatting changes, and there you go. And so the same goes for the templates as well as the amendment templates. I think some institutions, because the amendment templates are, especially the one that's bilateral, that doesn't have any of the preset auto-populated terms in there. Some people like to recycle those and reuse them for other purposes, and then it causes confusion among institutions. Wait, you made changes to the templates? I think it's the responsibility of the pass-through entity. If they're reducing burden on their side of the house with reformatting things, it's the responsibility to communicate to the subrecipient so that they're not searching for where things have changed, to make it easy on you of what exactly has changed if it's only formatting. So are we cool with that? Okay, so I also, in the FAQs, just explained that the word research, we talked about this at the last meeting, was removed from the generic subword templates so that you could use them for other things besides research. We had a little clarification about the administrative contact and the financial contact in 3A and 3B. Again, I don't think we wanted to prescribe exactly who those individuals should be at your organizations, because we're all structured so differently. And so essentially what we're saying there is you got to be consistent with what you're intending in those contact pages to what you're selecting on the terms and conditions of the face page. And so we want people to be mindful of that. We also talked about the changing of the terminology. Our old templates used to say fixed price. We changed that for fixed amount just to be consistent with the terminology and uniform guidance. That's the only reason. We also revised a couple of FAQs in the carryover guidance to ensure only consistency with the recent release of the templates. And so, for example, some of the preset language in the amendment is it the bilateral template that talked about the carryover. I think that language was adjusted a little bit, so I'm doing is I'm updating the carryover guidance document to be consistent with the templates, and so I highlight those changes. Yeah, draft to be released to the listserv, and let's discuss its future. We're going to talk about that in some later slides. Obviously, 85 FAQs. It's a little hard to handle and maintain, folks. But at the same time, I hear a lot of positive feedback from the community that you really use them, and quite a bit. But in terms of maintenance, it's really hard. So I think we should talk a little bit about where it needs to go in the future. All right, so this is going to be a follow-up to what I brought up at the last meeting in September regarding, because I just want to update. I'm not going to go through the whole history of it. I'm just going to update you with some things that have happened since September. So what I talked about last time is a quick recap. We were sort of in flux for a little while in understanding, and it's a little bit complex, and I just want to reiterate, I'm not a human subjects IRB specialist, but I do follow policies. And so there was some confusion about this term of cooperative agreements that was applying to all new, that the single IRB requirement would be for cooperative research that applied to all new federally funded research protocols that were approved January 21st, 2019. And so what that meant was, and let me just try to summarize this, there was in question that projects that were not in a single IRB model originally may have had to transition to single IRB. And the reason why I was bringing this up in subawards is, well, what does this mean for subawards? If you issued a subaward where it's stated, and I have this in the next slide, where the original award stated that the IRB approval and the verification was required, you may now need to amend it to not required for the following reason. So I was just trying to think ahead that while we were wondering if there were going to be projects that had to transition to IRB, whether that meant for you that an amendment might need to happen. And so the reason why things were transitioning had everything to do with some confusion along the way with the release of the common rule and how it was extended and the effective dates and when things took effect. And so that's why there was a little bit of confusion. But then there was clarification given on November 21st, and I copied and pasted it right here, which said that OHRP determined that for HHS cooperative research subject to the revised common rule, basically what they said, and they clarified that if you originally had multiple IRPs, that you could stay with that in lieu of a single IRB. So actually this was good news. So in other words, you're not going to have to go back in time and do amendments to say, hey, now things are have transitioned over to single IRB. And I'm really generalizing this. You may have your own case-by-case situations that I'm not aware about, but I just wanted to close the loop on that. You heard me ask a question this morning because I wanted to clarify the NIH policy on single IRB, if they were going to make any updates to their policy, which took effect in 2018. And as you heard this morning, that they are making some changes and updates, and we don't know yet if that's going to impact like the single IRB plans and proposals, but I guess it's a stay tuned, so I'm sure that we'll have more information. Of course, that's the proposal side of things, that's not the subaward side of things, but this was all related, which is why I asked the question this morning. Thank you. Oh, so that brings me to another big policy topic, certificates of confidentiality. I know, this one never seems to go away, right? Because it seems like we, came up with a good solution for our subawards, but I just want to bring some things to your attention. So this goes back to a policy notice from October 1st, 2017, that all NIH-funded research commencing or ongoing as of December 13th, 2016, were issued a certificate of confidentiality as a term and condition of their NIH award. So in other words, there were no more separate certificates that you had to actually go to the NIH for. Your notice of award and the terms and conditions acted as a certificate. And so we piloted language, we came up with a solution, it was incorporated into 2016 templates. But however, we haven't really talked about other sponsors yet. And so the next slide, to kind of give you an overview of what's happening with other sponsors, well, apparently in May of 2018, the CDC started doing something similar to the NIH, where they are also, you no longer have to go to them to get an actual certificate. It's the Terms and Conditions Act as the certificate. Same with the FDA. And I came across this because we had a situation in our institution where we had to issue a subaward off of one of these, and then I realized, oh, look at that. So I was like, I could use some language. Oh, wait a minute. The language that we currently have right now is tailored for the NIH that we've incorporated into the template. And so I talked with some individuals internally and folks that I've reached out here, for some advice. And from like my one circumstance, for example, we came up with our own language and we incorporated it in our template for our situation. And so that you may have these case-by-case situations that come up where you want to call it out into your subaward. And so on my next slide, I'm just cautioning you and bringing it to your awareness that bringing awareness about this is that the current boilerplate language is only applicable to NIH. For other sponsors, it's your responsibility to include the necessary language to flow it down. However, maybe we want to discuss the options here of maybe having some boilerplate language available for everybody to use that you want to plug into your subawards as necessary. With the case with the FDA and the CDC, they're not officially FDP members, but that doesn't mean that we don't necessarily have to come up with some boilerplate language. I'm not sure.
So HRQ and SAMHSA or the other agency aren't either. So
Okay.
none of them are. Yeah. So I mean, one thing that just because of the FCUI language being HHS wide, and all of these are HHS agencies, there is a drop-down menu on the face page that says other HHS agency, and then you type in the name of the agency. Of course, we've programmed the template so that the NIH-specific terms, which includes that certificate of confidentiality, only pop up if you select NIH as a sponsor. And the language is very specific because it references a notice from the NIH. So one thing, though, that I do just want to let people know is that if you run the NIH sponsor into the template, copy that language, change it to the other sponsor, you can still paste that language into attachment 2 and put the relevant notice in there that you need to, or link to the notice. So that's just one quick option that is available, and then we can work on maybe putting that in for other HHS agencies, just having it populate into attachment 2. So
That would be a solution. I know we got a lot left to go over with our session today,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you want to have any further discussion on this now, but I just wanted to bring awareness to it that there are other agencies that are following suit to NIH, what they're doing.
So maybe one thing is, if institutions are, I don't know how many people get notices of award where the certificate of confidentiality may be an issue with these other agencies. So as and when you see it, maybe just kind of make a note of it, and we can talk about how specific do we need to be. Do we need to have something that is very tailored for these other agencies, or a generic piece of language that maybe doesn't even reference this specific notice? Maybe, just start mulling that over,
Yeah.
and we can bring it back for May. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense to me. If it makes sense to you, they're like, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Move on.
Okay.
All right.
Is Kathy here? Yay! Kathy is here.
You all did a survey.
Here, let me let me give you this. I will, I don't know, you can take my seat and I'll get up.
I can
and
stand.
Then I'll give you the mic because it's being recorded. So.
Oh, thank you. All right. You want me to sit?
Doesn't matter.
All right.
Whatever you
Doesn't
want.
matter.
I'll just- Hi, everyone.
This is Kathy Kreidler.
Kreidler.
I'm sorry, Kreidler.
You do that all the time.
I do that all the time. Why do I do that? Okay.
That's okay. University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. So back in September of 18 at the fall meeting, I did a little presentation on subaward delays. And the whole basis was we have these beautiful forms. Why do they still take so long? And so I disclosed a lot about UT Health where it was about a 95-day average to issue a subaward to another institution from when it was supposed to start. So that seemed like a long time to me. And we looked at that both incoming and outgoing, and they were both 95 days. So we agreed at that meeting to form a working group to look at what's causing some of that and hopefully get to some best practices that we could share with all of the institutions. We formed the working group. We had 31 volunteers. I don't know if that's a lot or not. Seemed
That's
like
a
a lot
lot.
to me. Yeah, so that said that it was a pretty hot topic. We spent several meetings going through and we developed the survey, so that was from October to May of 19. And then when we put it out, it was about mid-November, and we went through early December for all of you to complete the survey. And we had 92 institutions respond to the survey. I don't know if that's good or not, but
That's pretty good.
92
It's
is
good,
okay.
very good.
So still an interesting topic for everyone. All of this while I was implementing a new grant management system, so that was fun.
Just the forward button.
Yes. Okay. So we wanted to share with you some very, very preliminary results. We still have a lot of data analysis to do. This first slide shows how many new subawards an institution will send out each year. So you can see most of the institutions, or the biggest majority, they do 1 to 100 each year. And then you have the next largest group at the 101 to 250 range. There's very few in the 500 plus range, so those are going to be your really large institutions. And we have who initiates or requests that the subaward be issued. So I've been at different institutions in my career, and it's been different all along, but some institutions wait for the department to send in a form or something saying, hey, issue the subaward, whereas other institutions do it centrally based on the proposal and the award and all of that. So it's split. We have to dive into the 7 institutions that said it's someone other than the PI department and other than central administration, so we have to look and see what that is. Pass-through auto carry forward, if the prime sponsor allows it. I'm very happy to say that this is moving in the right direction, where most people are moving to yes, just pass it through to the subrecipient. This one surprised me. It looks like the unilateral agreement has not yet been, welcomed or implemented in several institutions. So a lot of institutions are still moving toward, or still using the bilateral amendment instead of unilateral. So what are we going to do next? We'll come back hopefully in May with a lot more information and results from the survey, but just wanted to share with you that this project is moving along. So we will complete the data analysis. There were a lot of questions that had narrative responses to them, so we have to look at those, and we'll follow up with respondents as we need to and come back and present the full results and hopefully have draft recommendations for best practices and have a nice long discussion here, right? So that's basically it. Any questions on the survey? Thank you all who participated. I think it's going to prove very interesting when all is said and done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for leading the work group.
Oh, of course. My pleasure.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
I would like to ask a quick question. For those who implement the unilateral amendment
Mhm.
document,
Yeah.
when do you take it off your books as a completed action? Once you issue it to them signed, or after the 14 days have elapsed?
Good
I do
question.
it when I send it.
We do it when we send it also.
Thank you.
Now, I have a follow-up question to that. How many institutions cannot accept it? Because I issue them and I get them back saying we cannot accept a unilateral amendment.
Interesting. Are you guys at state
State
institutions?
institutions probably.
Yeah.
No, I am a state institution.
Well, I have one in particular where they won't.
Right,
accept.
and we've had to go back and amend our initial, because they didn't catch it on
Right.
the initial sub-award, where
Mhm.
we said, we're gonna issue unilaterally,
Right.
and they accepted, they signed.
Mm.
I'm like, well, but you signed, and they're like, yeah, we need to change that.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, so there were two people that said that you couldn't accept unilateral. Could you maybe?
Sure, so I'm one of those institutions that we issue about, over 1,000 sub-awards. We're I'm at the University of Pittsburgh, we're very decentralized.
Mhm.
And so a problem with unilateral amendments is when they'll come in, a lot of times we'll go into the department twiddles their thumbs, or God knows what happens. We get the thing in to execute the process in our office, maybe way past maybe that 14-day grace
Mhm.
period, or if there's winter break, or all of these different things. And then, not saying that the other institution maybe won't work with us, but we've also had a lot of issues with getting unilateral agreements that had wrong terms in them,
Mhm.
and it just being such a pain that we don't want to, so we won't issue them unilaterally either for the courtesy
Mhm.
that we don't want that way.
Sure.
So we will push, I'll notice, Pitt will push to have everything be bilateral, because we've just had too much grief with the unilateral.
So have you guys thought about having a mailbox and putting that contact on 3B for the amendments?
A mail,
Like a central mailbox for the amendments to go to?
oh, that would, we have 7 mailboxes.
Fair.
That would just be one.
One more place for it to not be. I understand. Did you also say that you guys don't accept unilateral?
No, we don't. We don't issue unilateral or separate. Similar to the same thing she said, we are centralized and we do have a centralized box. However, there's been issues with terms and conditions, and it's just our institution's stance to do that.
Okay. Anyone else have?
Question on that.
Mhm.
What are some of the terms and conditions and unilateral amendments that y'all can accept?
There has been issues with the invoicing terms, that's been going back and forth, and some of our more detailed ones, some of the flow down terms, especially when it was like required or something like that, we have to go back and negotiate. So just to be consistent across the board, we prefer bilateral versus unilateral.
But none of those would be included in the unilateral amendment.
Right, but as a whole, and to be consistent across the board, that's the stance that we take. Even with the NIH,
Jessica and then Maura.
We don't have a policy against accepting unilateral, but I will say that on a fair amount of our unilateral, what it is an extension for an additional 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that's a substantial change. And we absolutely have to go back and say, not that we're accepting unilateral, but like, as far as we knew, this project was over, and like the conflict of interest stuff didn't get done. And sometimes we're telling the fund that after the 14 days are over. So, I don't know if that's a problem in other institutions.
So Maura, I think we said, and then Melissa and Sherry.
So we're one of those high volume, I'm at Johns Hopkins, and we've been using unilateral for 3 years, and first off, we would respect anybody that says no, we can't accept it, which is, in 3 years' time is, we have so few, we don't even count it. It's not even worth worrying about those that can't do it. We just accept it, we want to go to bilateral, okay, and we rework what we've done internally. In terms of this, and we're one of the institutions that does it right away as well. I mean, to be able to do an amendment in an hour, I mean, I don't know if you've ever, if you've ever, you know, have metrics for that, but
Mhm.
you will be loved. And that is worth whatever we have to rework with the institutions that can't accept it. Because it's just a small percentage.
Mhm. So Melissa, you had a comment, and then Sherry.
So, I mean, I think that one of the challenges is, I guess, agreement on what constitutes a non-substantive change.
Mhm.
Because there's some institutions that would consider a no-cost extension, continuation funding that was in the proposal, I don't know, clearing the sky as food, and all non-substantive amendments, and then others that would have a far carryover approval is the only thing that's considered non-substantive.
Mhm.
But also, I will say that we found that no-cost extensions are a bit of a challenge as a unilateral mod, because we hear from our department, oh, yep, extend these subs, and then we send out the amendment, and it's unilateral, and we process it in our system, and all that, and then we hear from the sub, oh, no, but we're fully spent, like, I don't know what you think you're extending.
Right.
And we have to pull it all back. So, I mean, the no-cost extensions in particular are the one that we have heard thanks but no thanks the most.
Mhm. But that isn't because they don't want to sign off. It's like they're like, no, we're done. We don't want anything. We're just returning this return to sender.
Yeah,
It is closed.
It's the one time that I think I wish I required a signature to
Sure.
know that they wanted it.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Before I went through the whole process of amending all of the accounts and everything. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thought. Sherry.
I just kind of wanted to point out that I just double checked the template and it says that unilaterals need to go to the authorized official. So if you're getting an issue where they're sending it to the wrong people and you didn't get it, you could just point out to them, like, we still have 14 days to review this because you didn't send it to the right person.
It's actually a drop down with multiple.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Mhm.
So people
But yeah.
The
should select-
default is
Yeah.
authorized
select
official
where
though.
it needs to go.
Yeah.
You put certain, whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Like if they're not sending it to the right person, you could just point that out.
Yeah.
And then when I send them out, I process it as complete right away, but then I leave it on my personal tracking spreadsheet. And I always put in the email, please just confirm receipt of this. And then as soon as they confirm receipt, I put that on my tracker, my personal tracker,
Mhm.
and move it off onto that.
Sure.
Just so that I have some sort of acknowledgement that I didn't send it to somebody who doesn't even work there anymore.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. You and then Stephanie. Sorry. Okay.
I'm Philip, I'm from University of UC San Francisco. We're kind of like Johns Hopkins, we have a high volume as well. And that's just to say, we pretty much only issue the NCEs as unilateral, but we are able to check in our financial system if there's money still left, and that's something we've been trying to catch, so that we don't send out the NCEs and we go back to the department and say, hey, you actually need this. But you know, the way we read the template is if it's one of those boxes, like pre-filled out sections, that's where you can issue as non-substantive. But so maybe we do need to have a conversation about whether a 12-month NCE is substantive or not, if
Right.
that should even be an option on that page.
Yeah, I think one of the things too that we have a discussion about internally at my organization is that it says in the grants policy statement basically that, especially as it relates to the first no-cost extension, it can be for administrative purposes for an orderly closeout. So you may not even have money left to spend, but you may be doing activities related to the closeout of that award, and so you could still have that extension accepted even if you don't have money left to spend. But I think that that's, you know, an institution by institution decision on whether you leave accounts open or you consider you want to receive no cost extensions for that kind of thing and have them formally documented in that way or not. I think that can vary institution by institution how you deal with that yourselves. As well, Tyra and Stephanie.
So my question to UCSF and Johns Hopkins is, does your office initiate these, or are you receiving a request from the department saying, please issue these?
We're receiving a request.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. We are as well.
So then you
No.
confirm that the faculty member expects that they have more work to do.
That is
So
correct.
even more than is there money left, are they still working or are they done?
But
Yeah,
sometimes
but-
it'll be like the PI is like, oh, just extend all my stuff.
Sometimes,
And
but
there's,
Mhm.
Melissa's point is not lost, because we do occasionally have a conflict, and the PI at the sub is like, no, we don't need that.
Right.
Or you're doing the no-cost extension when you process the no-cost extension, and the sub has 60 days to get you their final invoice.
Yep.
Don't know that they're fully spent, they are, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Stephanie?
So the guidance for non-substantive does say, it talks about you can only use the unilateral modification template for these purposes. But if it was kind of tweaked a little to say non-substantive and then the subaward means this list of things, would that help people? I always point them to, I always put people to the template and say, look at the unilateral mod template, we'll only issue it, if it fits one of the boxes in there, and that's it. That's what non-substantive means.
Yeah.
And, most of the universities that we do work with are being gracious and, allowing our rationale and wanting it to be bilateral. There are community departments that issue us before bilateral. It's really unfortunate, because it feels like.
Who are they?
Who are they? Because it really feels like it's not in the spirit. I feel like
Right.
folks should be on board with such an action to say that we're gonna hand something down to you unilaterally, we're both FTP members.
Sure. But I think that's where we have the boxes on the first page of the subaward, so that, at the beginning, the parties
Yeah,
can be
I'm talking
clear
at the
about.
beginning, then there'll be a fight about it.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, and our institution doesn't support that, and we're saying it's not, it's gonna be, we're trying to say it's not that we don't have good administrative oversight, it's just the way the structure of
Sure.
our university is. And it's not, it doesn't behoove anyone to do it this way, because it just is riskier.
Yeah, and so I think, if there are specific institutions, we can definitely talk about that a little bit more, and see if we can help navigate that specific issue, I think. Ted?
So my big concern, and we currently don't issue, but we will accept unilaterals. But we don't issue unilaterals, and the reason why at this time, and I'm not saying that I'm not flexible to change, I'm just looking for things that will support the change to issuing unilateral. My concern is that, for my team, it's like, there's so many loops, it's like the thing never ends. So that's why I asked, when do you consider it completed? Because our data and metrics is based on a completed action. But if it still has to remain in my queue, which it would be, we have post-execution status that we've been getting metrics on. So in addition to the completed ones, the post-execution, I'm like, can we just end this loop? Can we just end it? So that's what I'm
I
Mm-hmm.
can
looking for
respond
support.
really quickly usually, because I'm not asking them to say that they processed it on their side or anything, which with a bilateral, they would have to probably take more time to look at it. I'm just asking them to confirm receipt. So I usually get really quick
Exactly.
responses on that.
But, confirming receipt and confirming acceptance, I mean, is that, do you consider, I mean,
I don't think
they
you
may
have to
not
confirm
accept it if
acceptance.
they disagree, if that maybe some of the information could be incorrect, or a situation where we don't have any more money and we're actually finished with this project or something like that. I mean, to me, when it says you have 14 days to respond, I'm thinking about, do you really accept it? Because even if we, as an institution, we do prefer and love unilaterals, it still goes through a review process.
Yeah.
Before we set it up, we make sure all the ducks are in a row and proper.
I think that like the times that you have to go back on a unilateral and make a change, like if they don't want the no cost extension and stuff, is so rare that it's worth the time savings. I mean, I would say probably like maybe 1 in 50 I have to change. And even in that case, it's like, okay, I'll just do another mod really quick. That's 2 seconds. I'll do it bilateral and say I'm canceling the previous mod and this is the end date or something like that,
So that's so like how many, okay, so how many people do you have issuing subs? And so is that infrequency across the entire team?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I gotta think about, that's my thing. I'm trying to streamline and make it, improve turnaround time and all of that. But, I'm just still trying to.
Well, you're mostly doing it for just federal grants, right? Because it's for FTP template stuff. It's going to be on federal grants, so it's going to be on your, because it's FTP template blowdown stuff. So it's going to be your more straightforward situations anyway. And if it's only for those non-substantive changes, like no cost extensions and stuff like that.
Even the what may be considered non-substantive by one person or entity may not be on the other end. And what I find with our particular profile of sponsor, even if they are federal sponsors, we have more not straightforward than straightforward. Making that assumption that, and I think that's why in the past that a lot of resources have not been dedicated to the subcontract function is because people think that there's nothing to it, but there is a lot. There's a lot that's going on.
So this is a really good topic, and I think maybe this would be a good topic for us to dig into in a future meeting, is to talk a little bit more and circle back on the bilateral and unilateral now that we've had a couple of years of this being out. Maybe do some checking in, some conversation. So we'll talk about putting that on the agenda, if not for the May meeting, because we may be having the discussion about what came out of the subaward delay survey. Then we can certainly have it in September and have that really be part of the agenda and ask people to come prepared to talk about unilateral mods. What can we do to further support, whether people use them or don't use them, or support the community in the use of them, whether that is that your community chooses not to use them. How do we support clear communication about how people are choosing to use this? So we're going to move on to committee structure.
This will be a fun topic.
Yes.
Okay, this is, I guess, our last 15 minutes. Okay, So the three of us have been talking a lot about succession planning. That's right. You didn't think we were going to do this forever, did you? But shockingly enough, like the three of us, we've been doing this for more than 3 years, maybe even 4 years, serving as co-chairs of this subcommittee. So, and this isn't an easy discussion because it's not really 100% clear where we want to take it, because we don't have to keep things exactly as they are with the status quo of how we've been doing things. So we want to ensure continuity during any type of transitions. I mean, first of all, we have definitely talked about when eventually all three of us roll off, we kind of want to do it on a rolling basis so that we still have some continuity. If you didn't notice, I'm a little overcommitted these days because I did just accept a position. I am now the co-chair of the FDP Communications Committee. So I'm kind of wearing two hats, and I'm hoping that by the May meeting, I'm transitioned off or on my way of transitioning off, because it's a lot to be done. And we've already started having some conversations about with some of our work group leads to kind of take a more active role in leading some of those working groups, which they have been anyway, but now we're kind of making it more official. But I think what we want to talk about is what you would like to see for the future, in terms of your involvement, in terms of your ideas for how we structure ourselves. I think over the years, as with a lot of topics with regards to managing federal subawards, policies have gotten more and more complex over the years, which is why we have 85 FAQs, which is why we have different versions of templates, which is why we need guidance documents for everything. So, we've toyed around with this idea of maybe having some type of a steering committee, for example, where we have the work group leads and maybe a couple of members at large meet on a regular basis to go over all the activities that are taking place and the hot topic issues that we need to tackle. We've certainly been having conversations about engaging our federal partners to attend the meetings and potentially participate in some of our calls. What's an appropriate number of co-chairs, and in terms of also the expectations of volunteerism. Given that, which I've already stuck out to you, I'm just curious what some of your thoughts are on some of this. Yes?
I'm curious what the current structure is. Is it just the three of you doing everything, like the templates and the data use attachments and everything? Or do you enlist working group help?
We enlist working group help, but we're heavily involved in most of the working groups.
Right. Actually, if, you know what, let's jump 2 slides ahead. Yeah, we'll get to the leads in a minute. One of the roles of the subcommittee co-chairs, this is what we do. So obviously we facilitate a lot of this, the discussion with members to explore areas that furthers our mission, which is to streamline the administration, you know, the burden related to federally sponsored research. And we identify areas for a potential demonstration. And so what is a demonstration? And actually, in the coming months, and as part of my role now in communications, we're going to be doing more outreach on what we mean by demonstration. And that term is really broadened. So it could be a survey, it could be a tool, it could be a pilot project, it could be a guidance document. There's many different ways that could go. So we're identifying these different areas as co-chairs, and then we have to kind of kick it up to the next level. And so that involves potentially like working with you in writing an activity proposal. Some things need to go up to the executive committee to get approval. Sometimes we could just work on things here. I won't go into all those details. We oversee all the working groups that are working on things. Sometimes we lead a working group. So Amanda, you know, has historically been co-leading, you know, the creation of the templates. I've always been leading the guidance documents and the FAQs, and then we'll participate amongst the 3 of us in different working groups as necessary. We field a lot of questions. Actually, I wouldn't say a lot. We get questions.
A healthy number.
I'd say healthy number of questions. Random questions that gets into the subboard's email address.
Yeah.
Also from a lot of non-FDP members that use our templates and don't come to the meetings. And so they ask us very basic questions on use of the templates, and then we'll point them to our website, and we'll point them to the FAQs. Oh, and this is my favorite, which is mediate disputes. And so every once in a while, not often, an institution will come to us and say, can you please help me? This other FDP institution refuses to remove these extra terms, which, you know, shouldn't be added, or they refuse to use the FDP subaward template. And I'm like, oh, do I have to? Okay. So then we have to. So then we go on those calls, and it's fine. You know, these are friendly. They're not heated discussions. It's just we come to an understanding. We want everyone to agree. And that's basically, I think, what we do as co-chairs.
That's a lot.
It's a time. Well, that's why I'm also talking about structure. I mean, that's a lot of responsibility. And I think, you know, in the future, it doesn't necessarily have to all fall on the co-chairs, all of these activities. More responsibility could be put onto the leads. And so that leads me, let me go a slide back. Okay. And so we have been having conversations with specific individuals who've been very actively involved already with particular working groups. So we'll go through it. So Laura Register and Stephanie Stone.
Stephanie's here. She's right over there.
Yes, Steph.
Laura couldn't be with us today, but Laura has been working on the templates. They would not be in the shape that they're in today if it weren't for Laura. She's learned how to program. She's learned how to do those things that we all rely on. And Stephanie has always been a very helpful participant and leader in working through the terms and conditions side of the discussions about the subaward template. So you know, that was one area that, you know, we had talked about just kind of moving that so that there could be leads, there could be more leadership and more voices kind of brought to the table by changing the structure a little bit.
And I have talked to Kathy Harlan, who couldn't be here today, and Julie Renkes. Julie is here. Where are you, Julie? She's waving, hi. And we're wearing the same outfits. Yeah. We're wearing green and black. And so Kathy and Julie have been involved with the guidance document group, I would say almost since its inception, since we started writing guidance and FAQ, so they're very familiar with the process that we go through every year. I'm also very excited because they both come from the ERI perspective, and I think it's really important to have that voice as well as just a different perspective than what some of the larger institutions go through in collecting and hearing concerns and what we all go through in helping the guidance. And so they're not the only ones writing guidance. I mean, this working group, and we tend to have new members come on and come off every year, help with the actual drafting of the questions and the writing of the text. And then we try to all agree on what we're trying to say, and then we send it out to you for comment.
One important change that we're going to make to the FAQs from now on is that they will be written in crayon.
Thank you. And then, of course, Brenda Kavanaugh and Jennifer McAllister, we spoke to them recently, too. Wave hi, Brenda. You all know Brenda. Woo! Their amazing leadership with the fixed-rate clinical research sample, that was no small feat, and they've also been involved at the very beginning in leading those efforts with multi-site clinical trials. And I spoke with them, and I said, would you guys mind, kind of being the leads when it comes to issues concerning clinical trials, clinical research, and that sample? And they said, sure. So we've got, what?
We said sure that quickly? I don't recall.
Yeah, you did. So there, we got 6 wonderful people who've been involved with all of these work groups for a long time that we have a lot of trust in, and they have a tremendous amount of knowledge. So we're toying with these different ideas of where we want to go. Do you like the idea of maybe having a steering committee type of thing, maybe something similar to how it's structured? And I know you've worked really a lot with the expanded clearinghouse. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Is it scary? Okay, go ahead.
How much time do you spend? What percentage of your time goes toward this, and how does the institution approve that?
That question makes me sweat a lot. My institution is fine with the time. I will say for me personally, it can vary a lot, just depending on what I am working on any given time. So for me, sometimes it's an hour a week, sometimes it's 3 hours a week. I don't know what your experience is.
Can we talk about this at the reception?
Somebody needs wine to discuss this experience. I don't know.
My institution's very supportive of me being in this role as well, because I'll tell you, I'm someone, and this is the other thing that you need to understand. The 3 of us have very different backgrounds and have very different roles at our respective institutions, which is why I think this works so well. Amanda having a tremendous amount of experience issuing subwards and leading contracting efforts in subwards. Me never having issued a subward in my life. I'm more on the policy side of things. Yeah, I fooled all of you. And then you and Amanda, from the proposal perspective and pre-award. And so it's really important, I think, in this role, you can't have an agenda. You have to be a really great listener to hear how different institutions, work, and then try to facilitate these discussions so that we can all come to an understanding. I think it's really important to kind of stay neutral on a lot of things. Yep.
Well, number one, you're being recorded, so.
Exactly.
And all the volunteers, congratulations, because you've been recorded as well. But I want to say that out of all the sessions I go to not have the facilitation of this, and it might be the dynamic of the 3 of you, but not all sessions are like this, and you're not going to get the same type of interactions, intimacy and stuff like that. So what would facilitate that is probably your best concern. Is maybe not certain the structure, because I think getting a group of people together to talk candidly with one another is really the most important part about this session and in the subward group. So I commend you on that. So I don't know if that's replaceable, because we go to other sessions and that dynamic may or may not be there, but I can tell you it's not there in the full force that you guys have, so congratulations on that. But I would say that, again, that I think that for all these individuals, you do have to have, no matter what, 3 individuals or 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever it takes to get the kind of energy you guys are getting out of people. I think that's really important. That's my comment.
So,
No
yeah.
solutions.
Structure as well as, I guess, the right people to kind
Mm-hmm.
of lead discussion and be that neutral discussion facilitating folks.
Mm-hmm.
Are you that guy?
I've been recorded, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I second that, emotion that you just, indicated, and it's been consistently that way, among the previous co-chairs as well, and so I think that the template and the model has been well established. Maybe you all could think about as a part of your succession plan is how to help, individuals write benefit statements that would, help convince or, propose to their leadership so that they can, let people understand with this contribution of time, our institution actually benefits from these tools in this way or whatever. I don't know how you would write it.
And I was going to say that is that I've loved being in this role. It's like, for me, the best career development I've had, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And like I said, I never issued a subaward in my life, and now I know everything about subawards. And I have brought so much back from learning from all of you back to my own institution, of course, and share that information.
So, and I will just say that I found myself a few months back handling an issue that I'd never handled before in the 11 years or whatever I'd been doing my job. And the first people I called were these two to help me. They know everything and they help me.
No,
do
we
it,
don't know
so.
everything.
But,
We definitely don't know everything.
We
Yeah.
know to rely on each other.
Yeah.
I think that's the important
That's the other thing is being with these coaches. We call each other all the time or email each other and bounce things off. And, through our leads, I mean, we've developed our own little mini community to resolve issues as well, a trusted group. So that, I think,
That's
is
the
the
benefit.
biggest benefit of being in this role. Yeah.
I echo some of the comments over here and respect the enthusiasm, the charisma, and also the protection that you've given as stewards of the templates. And so as a tangible suggestion, I would love to participate, but I would not want to impact in any way what you've created. So I wonder if a slow brain transfer can be addressed through small mentorships with people who might be interested in each of your roles.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm leaving there, but a slow brain.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, mentoring.
Yeah,
The,
mentoring's
the co-chair mentoring program. I love that. I think we're at time, right?
Yeah, I think we're at time.
Okay. So, final words, friendly reminders. Yeah, don't change. Yeah, don't change the templates.
Don't change them. And if for some reason you change them, clearly communicate the rationale to the other party and take the FDP moniker off of it.
And also,
Thank
you could come find the three of us at the reception if you want to talk about it a little further, because I think we'll be happy to tell you more about our time commitments and everything we've gotten out of it in serving in this role.
Except for the 2B in the clinical trial sample, which you can change.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
Brenda.
sample.
See, that's why she's a great leader. Attachment 2B is editable.
All samples
Samples are editable.
editable.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you,
everyone.
everybody.